Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rachel Anita and I like to do videos about ADHD, lifestyle, mental health, budgeting, just really anything that I'm dealing with. Today we're going to be doing a video about ADHD 3 years after my diagnosis. I was diagnosed around this time in 2021, so it's about 3 years since I got my ADHD diagnosis. And I just kind of want to share with you where I was then and where I am now. I've done a few different videos on this topic and a lot of people ask me for updates on my medication, on how I'm feeling, on what has helped me besides medication, and I just thought I'd share that with you today. So stay tuned if you want to hear about all of those things. I'm going to be talking a lot about symptoms of ADHD that aren't really thought of as symptoms of ADHD, and I was shocked to find out I had ADHD. And so that's what I want to talk about today, and maybe you'll relate, maybe you'll find some answers for you, or something to look into. And so that's kind of what I want to start with. I'm going to be talking about a lot of other things as well, comorbidities, my story overall, and I just want to share that with you. So stay tuned, let's get going, okay? Before we get into the rest of the video, I wanted to talk very quickly about Magic Mind. Magic Mind is a mental performance shot that is full of nootropics, adaptogens, and essential vitamins, and I have been taking it for about 2 to 3 years now. It is a part of my daily routine. Sometimes I'll even take it twice, and it is one of my faves. It is a little shot that looks like this. The bottle says, do more, stress less, and that is something that I'm constantly trying to live, I guess. As someone with ADHD, and I know a lot of people watching this video also struggle with it, I'm someone that struggles with my attention, with focus, with energy levels, with just a bunch of different stuff, and as you'll hear me talk about in the rest of the video, it's been really hard. So before I got diagnosed and before I got put on medication, I was looking for anything that would help me deal with these issues. And what I found was medical studies, research studies about a lot of ingredients that ended up being in Magic Mind. So when they reached out to me, I was super stoked about trying it out. And like I said, it's been part of my daily routine ever since. Some of those ingredients that I have been a big fan of for a long time include things like rhodiola rosea, curcumin, bacopa monnieri, ashwagandha, L-theanine, has some matcha in it. Some of the other ingredients include lion's mane and organic cordyceps, which are all really great for your cognitive function. I usually take it in the morning. Sometimes I'll take it in the afternoon or before a yoga session or before a date or something, or before seeing friends, especially if my energy levels are feeling a little low or I'm having a lot of brain fog that day. I haven't had mine yet, but I'm gonna have it now. So I always shake it up a little bit. I think the turmeric is what collects at the bottom, and I love turmeric because it helps with inflammation. And it's refreshing, subtly sweet, as they say, and just kind of gives me that boost of energy that I want sometimes when I'm struggling a little bit. My cognitive function isn't at its peak. It comes in a subscription, or you can order it one time only. I have a discount code down below. You can check it out. I'll also put it here. You can find it at www.magicmind.com/Anita20. My discount code is Anita20. Something that I really like about it also is that it's 100% satisfaction guarantee. So if you're not in love with it, you can always return it for a refund. I've been taking it consistently for a very long time, and that's when you see the best effects with these kinds of ingredients. So again, I would highly recommend you check it out. Check out the discount code down below. I'll definitely remind you at the end of this video. Let me know what you think also if you end up trying it out, because again, I'm a big fan. A lot of my friends love it. A lot of my family members love it. Usually I always bring it with me on travel. It's just part of my daily routine. And I hope that you like it as much as I do. Anyway, don't forget to check it out. Okay, so let's get started with an overview. So I was diagnosed with ADHD inattentive type in 2021, I think September of 2021. So it was around this time. And it was a hard time getting the diagnosis. It was so difficult. And that's what I found is the same for a lot of my subscribers and commenters. Let me know if you've had the same experience down below. I know how hard it is to get a diagnosis for so many different things, especially this. I just want to talk about my background a little bit and about what my childhood was like, because a lot of people, like I was able to accomplish a lot of things that a lot of people with ADHD can't accomplish, I guess, which is super stupid because it's definitely a spectrum. For example, I went to college and I did okay and I got my degree and I can hold a job and, you know, lots of different things that I've been able to accomplish that, you know, I hear a lot of people that are like, my psychiatrist didn't diagnose me because he said that people with ADHD wouldn't be able to get a degree or wouldn't be able to graduate college or graduate high school or whatever, you know, and that's just not the case. So I just want to talk about my childhood a little bit. So my childhood was interesting. I don't remember much about my childhood. I have a horrible memory, as many of us with ADHD do, and I also have a lot of comorbidities. Comorbidities, that's always a fun word. I am diagnosed with depression, PTSD, anxiety, OCD, just a few other things. I also have substance abuse disorder. And so all of those things are part of my story and are also intertwined with ADHD. That might not be part of your story, but you might be able to relate to some things, and so I just want to share that. I grew up feeling out of place. I just remember feeling like not right. I remember feeling confused a lot. I struggled in school with paying attention. I was very quiet, so I wasn't like hyperactive. I wasn't jumping off the walls. I was just like pretty quiet and uncomfortable, I guess is how I would put it. And again, I don't remember, but I remember during the tests when they would ask you like, did you have trouble paying attention in school? Did you do this? Were you bouncing off the walls? And I just couldn't really remember. And so it was kind of hard to get a diagnosis because I couldn't remember, but it's like, no, I definitely struggled with those things. And it kind of really hit me hard. And it wasn't actually until about I was 22 when my symptoms really began to affect my life. That's because I was finally in a place mentally where I could realize that. And what I mean by that is I struggled with substance use disorder heavily from ages like 16 to 22, and so I was like just drunk all the time. So I'm an alcoholic in recovery and I was just drunk all the time, right? So you can't really tell what symptoms you have of anything if you're just drunk all the time, right? And so it was when I got sober and started living like a life without anything, like no substances, it was just me and my brain, that I realized that something was wrong. I was super fatigued. I had some of my symptoms of ADHD include these things. Okay, super fatigued. I would sleep like 16 hours a day. It was horrible. You know, I was just exhausted all the time. One of the worst symptoms that I faced was brain fog, and just like this heaviness on my head. And I still have it every day, but it's a lot less now. It felt like a wet towel on my head, just all the time weighing me down. And I experienced a lot of pain in my body, pain in my joints, pain in my muscles, just for no reason. It wasn't like I was exercising or anything, but like just pain and discomfort. And yeah, I would say the brain fog and the fatigue was the worst because it really affected my daily life. Like I said, I would sleep 16 hours a day, and it was affecting my marriage, it was affecting my friendships, it was affecting my social life, it was affecting my job. I would wake up for a meeting and just like do the meeting really quick and then like pump out like 2 quick things that I could do, and then I'd have to fall back asleep. And it was just horrible, you know. And again, my attention, I didn't really pay attention to the attention issues at that time because I was focused on this fatigue, but I definitely had huge attention issues. I could finally start looking at the other things. So I started getting treatment for my depression for the first time, my anxiety for the first time, my PTSD for the first time. And those were all very well and good. And I kept getting told by psychiatrists, like, the fatigue's a depression thing. If you deal with the depression, you'll feel better, and fatigue will go away, the pain will go away, everything will go away, and everything will be better. And so I started vigorously working to improve those things, right? And it wasn't until, I think, in beginning of 2021, when I wasn't depressed anymore, wasn't anxious anymore, had dealt with my PTSD, had dealt with all these other things, that I was like, okay, I did everything they said, and I still feel horrible. And it was just like the worst realization. And so at that point, I thought it might be something physical. So I started getting sleep studies done because my sleep was so rocked. And another thing, like, I would sleep 16 hours a day and I wouldn't wake up feeling rested. Even if I slept 8 hours a day, I wouldn't feel rested. I tried a lot of different things. You know, my husband would be like, try sleeping only 8 hours like a normal person. I'd do that and it would just feel horrible. If I I couldn't be social because if I went out and was social, I would literally need to like rest for the next 3 days. It was so exhausting to me. My therapist would be like, exercise, that'll help you feel energy and feel better. And if I exercised, I would feel wiped out for the next few days. And I don't know if anyone else experienced this, but it was just like this constant horrible feeling of something was wrong with me and I couldn't figure out what. So yeah, I got sleep studies done, I got EKGs, I got my blood drawn, and everything was fine. And that was just so frustrating. It's so frustrating dealing with something so horrible and then having doctors and medical professionals like look at you and tell you, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. It must be like in your head. And it turns out it kind of was, I guess. It was just really hard. It was so demoralizing to be told that nothing was wrong with me, but still have like serious symptoms that caused me pain and discomfort and like just made me feel like I wasn't living a real life, I guess. I didn't feel like I was part of my world. I felt like there was a big screen in front of me that kind of just blocked me from connecting with the real world. And it was just horrible. And I remember in the summer of 2021, I started looking up other things, you know, like, and that's kind of how I ended up in ADHD. And I did a lot of research into ADHD because the first thing you look up with the ADHD, you get like little boys being hyperactive. And I keep saying that, but that's really what comes up. Things might have changed a little bit more now, but back then it was just, that's all that came up. And I did a little bit more digging and I found out about inattentive ADHD. And that, like, it hit. I was like, oh, I think this looks interesting. Because up until that point, I decided that I had chronic fatigue syndrome. And it was frustrating because chronic fatigue syndrome, there's not really any treatment for it. Doctors don't really take it seriously, but that it matched my symptoms to a T, chronic fatigue syndrome. And so I kind of resigned myself to having chronic fatigue syndrome, which means I don't really have any recourses, I guess. I don't have many options. There's not really any treatments for it. In fact, it's hard to get doctors to diagnose you with it, right? But it was debilitating, you know, it was disabling. And I was kind of nervous going to my doctor because, again, I have substance abuse disorder. And I was kind of nervous going to my psychiatrist and being like, hey, I think I have this disorder that gets stimulants prescribed. And I was worried he was going to think I was drug seeking, which I was not. I just really needed help. And I did a lot of research and I remember being like, okay, I need to present this to my psychiatrist in a way that he's not going to think I'm drug seeking and will test me. And it was something I'd been working with him for months, like these issues. And it was, I remember, I think I went in like in August or something and I was like, hey doctor, can you please test me for this disorder? I think I might have it, I'm not sure. And he ended up testing me for it. And when he told me that he thinks I have ADHD and attentive type, like the relief, you know, when he diagnosed me with it officially, just like my body was just like, oh my God, like an answer. And I would have rather nothing been wrong with me, you know, and not have these symptoms, but it was such a relief to finally know what was wrong with me. And that's something that I love. I love knowing what's wrong with me because there's stuff wrong with me, you know? Like, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm an alcoholic. I love being depressed. But like, I love that I have terms and names for the things that I'm experiencing, and also that I have potential solutions to help me. So like, now I say I'm an alcoholic, and I am thankful that I know that I'm an alcoholic because I can treat it. There's things I can do to make myself feel better, along with the depression, PTSD, everything else, you know? And so it was the same thing with the ADHD. When he finally diagnosed me with ADHD, I had options. You know, I had options. I could go without treatment, I could get treatment, and I decided to get treatment. So that's kind of how I got to my diagnosis. And a lot of people struggle with getting a diagnosis for a number of reasons. Either healthcare is unobtainable, healthcare is too expensive, and I get that a lot of my comments, and I'd love to do another video about that, but I can't get into it too much in this video. But basically, yeah, I was able to get a diagnosis with my primary psychiatrist, and it was just like so amazing. And so first he offered me Ritalin, and Ritalin's the short-acting version of Concerta. And he said, let's try this out for a while. I think I was started on 15 milligrams or something. And so I tried it. And the first day I had the Ritalin's short acting and it kicks in really fast. So within 15 minutes, it was just immediate. It was wild. Within 15 minutes. So my husband and I had like been having a hard time because I couldn't do things that he wanted me to do. He was nervous I was going to lose my job because I was sleeping most of the day. You know, he would ask me to do the dishes and I was just not going to do the dishes. I wouldn't do them, or I'd do them 3/4 of the way. You know, I couldn't clean up after myself. I couldn't pay attention to him as he was talking to me. And it was very difficult for us, you know, because I didn't have an answer and he just thought I was like this. He thought I was lazy. I mean, he never, you know, called me those things, but like he thought you know, and it looked like it. It looked like I was lazy because I wasn't helping around the house. You know, I was sleeping all day. I was just ignoring him, right? And what he asked me to do. And so I think that his perception was fair, you know, and it was really difficult, you know. I really thought that like, if I did all the stuff I needed to do, and I did, you know, I went to therapy once a week for 2 years. If, you know, I did intensive PTSD therapy. I thought that if I did all of those things, I thought if I resolved my trauma, that all my symptoms would go away. And they didn't. And it was just so demoralizing and painful, you know, to not get the answers and the results that I so desperately wanted. So when I took that medication for the first time, it was wild. I was like suddenly a normal person. I did a bunch of projects at work that I had been putting off for ages, just suddenly. And they weren't even hard projects. They were just projects I couldn't get myself to do because I wasn't interested in them. You know, I suddenly did all the dishes. I did all the laundry. I cleaned the house. You know, I was awake that day for the first time. But something that I realized with the Ritalin was that I would hit a crash. So once it wore off, after about 3 hours, I crashed really badly and I had a headache. And so I would take my second dose, but it was difficult. So I went back to my psychiatrist and I was like, hey, I'm getting this horrible crash. It's not lasting long enough. And he switched me to Concerta. And I started off on a lower dose of Concerta. I think it was 18 milligrams, or 18 milligrams. And that was okay, but I didn't really see much of a change. And it wasn't until I switched up to 36 milligrams that I got the change that I was looking for. You know, I woke up at 9, I worked, I did a project, I did the dishes, I did the laundry all the way through. I put it in the washer, I put it in the dryer, and then I folded it and put it away. And before, I would put it in the washer, put it in the dryer, and then leave it in the dryer for a very long time, and then maybe fold it like 5 days later or something. And this, like, I was suddenly just doing these things like a normal human would, and it was just shocking and wild. And that's when my life changed, I would say, because there was a few dosage changes. I went up to 56 at one point, realized that was too much, so I went back down to 36, and I've been on 36 milligrams for this whole time, I think, about 3 years. And it changed my life in a lot of different ways, you know. And this person that's in your life might be someone else. It might be your mother, it might be your siblings, it might be your roommate, whatever. But for me, it was my husband, who suddenly everything that he had attributed to, you know, just me not wanting to do it or whatever. And I don't want anyone to bash him. It looked like I didn't want to do it because there was nothing wrong with me. Everything was fine. It just wasn't doing anything, right? There was a medical condition now that I could attribute all that to. Like, it was just liberating for both me and my husband at the time, because he was like, oh my God, like, you were suffering from a medical condition this whole time. And that's what it was. And I also want to say something, like, when I realized it was a medical condition, it really is a medical condition. It's not just like a psycho, you know, and I want to explain this to people because people might be like, oh, it's just ADHD. No, I just want to make it clear. People with ADHD, our prefrontal cortex is smaller than other people's. We have smaller brains. Smaller, cuter, more demure, whatever, you know, and some of our neurotransmitters and our pathways aren't as good as other people's, I guess. So I'm gonna read some things. My memory's bad, you know. But we have 2 pathways that are affected: the dopamine reward pathway and the mesocortical pathway. These help the prefrontal cortex facilitate executive functioning, cognitive functioning. And ours, people with ADHD, they just aren't as strong, right? they're disrupted. It leads to impairment in cognitive function, which is, again, why I take medication and why I drink things like Magic Mind, because the ingredients in Magic Mind and also the ingredients in the medication help with that. And basically, these pathways allow for the transport of dopamine. And because our pathways are disrupted, they're impaired, we are not getting that transport of dopamine as smoothly as other people, basically. And that leads to cognitive dysfunction, basically. And so people with ADHD are experiencing something very real and physical in their brain that leads to our symptoms. And I just want to make that clear, because something is wrong with you, but it's not your fault. You know, your brain is just like this, and there's treatment that you can get, and it's very real. And I am going to validate your feelings and validate your symptoms and tell you that it's real and there's treatment and you're not just lazy. And I just want you to know that, because I really thought I was lazy. I really felt so upset at myself for not being enough, for not doing enough, for not doing more, for not being smarter, for not doing as well as other kids in classes as easier. I'm gonna read something else that's interesting. So studies have also discovered in people with ADHD, there's an unusually high level of functional connectivity between the brain regions that form part of a mechanism called the selective visual attention system. So this system allows us to determine what's important to notice or pay attention to in a moment. So because we have irregular connectivity within the system, it causes children and adults with ADHD to notice irrelevant things in their field of vision, making it hard to know what to focus on. And that's another thing that I dealt with. So with my attention, I struggled with paying attention to things I didn't want to pay attention to. Boring conversations. Work conversations I found boring or uninteresting to me. But I was able to focus on things that I was interested in. I was able to play video games for 8 hours a day if I wanted to. I did not want to do the dishes. And so, like, what did give me dopamine, I wanted to focus on, and what didn't, I was like, And it's another reason, like, so I very rarely, like, I try to make contact with eye contact with people when I'm talking to them, but I can't sometimes. And sometimes I'll look off into the distance, and I'll be looking off into the distance and fully talking to them. I'll be like, yeah, and then I went to the store, but I'll be like zoned out, like my eyes will be really wide, and I'll be like, yeah, anyway, and then I went to the store, and yeah, I bought all these like groceries, and I found like a really tasty drink, and I want you to try it, you know, I'll look at them again. And I had a friend recently I was talking to, like, look behind them to see what I was looking at, and I had hyper focus onto this little dog while I was talking to them. I wasn't really looking at the dog. I was just like blacked out looking at the dog while I was talking to them. And yeah, and like my husband, when we would talk, he would be like, why aren't you looking at me? Are you listening to what I'm saying? And I was listening to what they were saying, but I didn't want to look at him. I was just like, anyway, you know, and it's hard, but it's literally like a chemical thing in our brains, you know? And yeah, so I just want to validate all that. It's a real physical condition, our prefrontal cortex, and not only is our, what did I say, prefrontal cortex smaller, our cerebellum is smaller, our amygdala is smaller, our hippocampus is smaller. Like, our cerebellum being smaller can be attributed to people not being able to stay seated, you know, like kids not being able to stay seated. Similarly, like, I'm not hyperactive, like jumping off my seat, but I'm like constantly looking around, you know, and also kind of struggled to stay in my seat. Like, I was in an AA meeting the other night, and I realized I was like swinging my head around. I was like looking around. I was listening, but I was like uncomfortable in my seat, you know? And we have smaller brains. We just do. I don't know, you know, and it's not our fault. It just is what it is, and we can get treatment to help us live better lives. And yeah, so I just want to talk about all that, you know, and once I got on the treatment, my life just got so much better, you know? My relationship with my husband got better. My relationship with my friends got better. And I just had answers, and that was incredible. And so now, 3 years on, let me just tell you a little bit about my life. Okay? I take my medication every day. Sometimes I skip it if I'm gonna be on a flight all day or whatever, but usually I take it every day because I need to. Some people take breaks on weekends, some people do whatever, but I take it every day because I need to, or else I'll sleep all day and not being able to function. And it helps with my brain fog. It helps with my pain, which is strange. Like, my body pain feels better. It helps with my headaches. It helps with so many things. And it was wild thinking going from thinking I had a chronic fatigue syndrome, which is like not treatable really, to something that was treatable. And that was just amazing to me. And so 3 years on, let me tell you about a little about my life. So things have changed for me a lot, and it's not because of my ADHD. It's because of other things. Like, I'm no longer married. I am in the process of a divorce. I have a new apartment. You know, my dad has died since then. I've adopted a dog, you know, I've gotten promotions at work, I have my own apartment, I'm in a financially stable place. And I've been able to do all of these things, not just because of my ADHD treatment, because of the other things in my life, because I deal with my substance abuse disorder, because I stay on top of my depression and my anxiety, because of all the other things that I do. But the ADHD thing's a big one, because without the Concerta, I don't think I would have been able to do all those things, because I'd be sleeping all day, right? And I'm just very thankful. And I haven't changed my medication since then, since I haven't had to. I have been dealing with more fatigue and like brain fog lately over the last few weeks. And so I might check in with my psychiatrist about that and see what they have to say. Maybe we'll go up on the med a little bit, but like overall my life is so much better, and yours can be too, which is why I'm sharing all of this, you know? And now with my medication, like, let me just describe my day to you. It's not perfect. I wouldn't say it's normal. You know, I usually wake up and I have some brain fog and I have a headache and I take my medication and I usually am like, I hope today's a good day. Some days I wake up and I know I'm not gonna have a good day physically. It's not better every day. It's not. But it's better most of the time. And so I'm thankful for that. And sometimes I take my medication and I do feel some anxiety. And so I won't drink coffee, but you know, I'm able to go to work and take care of my dog and be present in the lives of the people I care about. You know, I'm able to pay attention a lot better and listen to people have to say. I will say, like, let me just list up the things that I am still struggling with. So I still deal with some brain fog. I feel like I have brain fog all the time. But it's like at a 10% level now versus at like a 90% level, which was before. You know, it's manageable. I feel like that screen that's between me and the world is a lot clearer. It's not gone, but it's a lot clearer, and I can participate in my daily life a lot better, you know? Before, when I would interact with people, I would also be on my phone, or I'd be fiddling with something. I'd be fidgeting with something. And now I'm much better at not doing that. You know, sometimes especially with people I'm comfortable with, I'll have my phone out and I'll do stuff and they know I'm listening to them, but like I'm still fidgeting. But I'm also able to put my phone away now and pay attention to people, and that's something that I was not able to do before, you know? I get my things done. You know, I wake up and I think, I have to do my laundry today, and I do my laundry. Or I have to clean my apartment today, and I clean my apartment. And it's just so different than what it was before, because it just like, I just couldn't do any of those things before. And I'm gonna talk about some other symptoms, which kind of have to do with my hair. So ADHD people also deal with other things that, like for example, sensory issues. Some of my sensory issues include my hair being down. So I actually never have my hair down. I usually have it up, and I'm gonna put it up right now because it's kind of bothering me. I love having long hair. I love my hair. I love like it being down and stuff, but it bothers me. Like I just get like, ooh, you know? And so I always have to put it up. But I put it down for videos, and I put it down when I'm like out with friends and stuff, and I wanna look cute. Another thing is I get really bothered about my feet when I'm getting to bed. Like if I feel like they're gross, even if they're not gross, I have to go like rinse them off and then I get back in bed. Another thing is sound. I'm super sensitive to sound, and I wear earplugs most of the time. Like there's one here. And I just usually have them in because I am very sensitive to sound. Doesn't have to be even loud sounds, just sometimes I wake up and my sensitivity to hearing is just not great that day. And so I have 2 earplugs in, sometimes I'll have 1 earplug in, on really good days I'll have 0 earplugs in. And yeah, so another symptom of ADHD is sensory issues, and people's might be totally different. They might have sensitivity to smell or sensitivity to clothing, fabrics. That's another one I have. I'm very sensitive to uncomfortable like things on my skin, and so I have a uniform basically of clothing that I can wear, and I found what makes me feel comfortable physically And that's what I say too. I only wear cotton or linens. I hate wearing jeans. I hate wearing clothing that's loose fitting because I can feel it brushing against my body. And again, these things could also overlap with a lot of other neurodivergencies like autism or other things, but for me, they've been attributed to my ADHD. And so, I don't know, think about that. I see if you have any of those symptoms and like try to do something to make yourself feel better. Like I was sensitive to sound and I didn't know how much it was agitating me and making me tired and making me feel overwhelmed and stuff. And then once I got diagnosed with ADHD and learned that sound was like an issue for some people, I was like, oh, sound's an issue for me. And so I started wearing earplugs and my life just got so much better, you know? And so I've been able to, once I got my diagnosis, I've been able to change things in my life that have made me feel, that have allowed me to live a more comfortable life. And so that's another thing that ADHD diagnosis has given me. It's given me the knowledge and understanding to be able to change things in my life to make myself feel more comfortable and able to move freely in my life like a normal person would. And so that's another thing that I'm really grateful for. I mean, my life is just so much better, you know, now knowing that what I have wrong with me is just completely life-changing, you know, and it's allowed me to live a fuller, happier life. It allows me to be better at my job. You know, I definitely still struggle. Like during the workday, I definitely struggle with things I'm not interested in, and I definitely struggle with paying attention. It's not perfect. You know, some days I don't work at all because my attention is so bad, but it's so much better than it was. And I can like live a life now. I can live a happy life and I can live a fulfilling life. And yeah, like I just want this issue to be known more, you know? Inattentive ADHD is possible in both men and women. Women are less likely to be diagnosed, and we are diagnosed later in life, you know? And we do tend to be diagnosed later in life, but it's important for you, just like it was for me, to fight to find answers, and hopefully you're able to find answers as well. You know, there's tests that you can take with your psychiatrist, and definitely like push for it, and like don't like make things seem less than they are, you know, because there's another thing that I struggled with when I was first taking tests for ADHD, just online looking. I was masking very heavily at the time, and so I wasn't answering the questions honestly because I was heavily masking and I was putting on this like facade of being able to do everything. And it's also exhausting to mask all the time, which is probably another reason I was so fatigued, you know? And yeah, it's just horrible. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to share my experience with you. Like, if you think you might have a problem, if you think you have attention issues, if you're having that fatigue that's tied in with all of these other things, definitely look into it. And I just want to flag a few other things that might be important. People with ADHD tend to have comorbidities, I hate that word, like depression, anxiety, but also substance use disorder. And thankfully I was able to get a handle on my substance use disorder before I got diagnosed with ADHD, but if you are dealing with possible substance use disorder, I would highly recommend looking into that, because people with ADHD have a higher percentage, I forget what it is, of having also substance use disorder, whether it's alcohol or marijuana or whatever, you know? And it's very much worth for me getting sober, and it's helped me change my life. And yeah, I don't know. Let me know if I think that's all I have to say on this topic. Let me know if you have anything else you want to hear about ADHD. I'm happy to answer questions. I am learning something new about ADHD a lot. Like, I had forgotten that Concerta works better with drinking water, so I've been drinking a lot more water lately with my Concerta, and I've definitely seen an improvement in the efficacy of my Concerta. And yeah, anyway, something that also helps me is telling everyone in my life that I have ADHD, because then they have more grace for me. And it lessens the stigma. Like, even me saying this online to the internet lessens the stigma of ADHD. You know, it forces people to educate themselves on this very real disorder that is very physical, because our brains are literally smaller. And that's okay that my brain's smaller. It's not my fault. I was just born this way. But yeah, I wanted to thank you all so much for listening to me. Let me know what you related to in the comments. I just like love reading everyone's comments, and want to thank you all so much for watching and subscribing to me and like checking in on me. A lot of you check in on me and see how I'm doing. And I really appreciate it because, again, getting diagnosed with ADHD has really changed my life, and it's allowed me to be there for my family, for my friends. I just want to remind you to check out Magic Mind down below. Again, I take it every day. It helps me have a sharper mind, steadier energy, better focus, all of those things. And the link is down below. You can also use my discount code or my link, www.magicmind.com/Anita20. Thanks for watching. Bye.